To access Fusion 360, first you'll need to download it from either the Autodesk Education community at www.autodesk.com/education or the Fusion 360 Hub at fusion360.autodesk.com. With your Autodesk ID, you can simply log in and Fusion will set up its environment. The first time you start Fusion 360, you'll be given additional information as well as access to step-by-step tutorials on form, function, fabrication, and managing Fusion 360 data. You can always return later and find those tutorials through the Help settings. When Fusion opens, you'll be greeted with the Design window. On the left side of the Design window, you can open the Data panel. The Data panel gives you direct access to your designs that are on the cloud. You can reorganize the Data panel in different ways to see your data in the way that's most desirable for you, and you can also select different projects that might exist. Your data is also available through Autodesk 360. In this case, we'll launch the Autodesk 360 environment in order to take a look at it as well. When you launch Autodesk 360, you're greeted with several tips on what the interface holds for you. Inside of Autodesk 360, you're able to browse projects, data, people, your calendars, and the dashboard will also present the latest work that's been done on the right-hand side. In this case, we'd like to take a closer look at a design that we saw back in our Fusion Data panel. Simply picking on the image or the name will bring up a preview window. Inside of the preview window, we can take a look at a visual representation of the model, including the ability to manipulate the view cube to understand how it's built. In this initial view, we can also add our own notes or messages to others who might be collaborating with us, add links, upload files, add events or polls, all related to this data. We can also have it generate preview renderings. This only takes a couple of minutes, but for the sake of time, we'll move on. Looking at the history of a file can also tell you who has accessed it, who has created it. In this case, because it's sample data, we only have one version. We can also see if there is other data related to this file. Also from Autodesk 360, we can open our data in Fusion 360. We can export it to other file formats. We can create other information of a more social nature. We can move the data around, we can replicate it, and we can also delete it. Instead of opening our design from this environment, let's go back to Fusion 360 and access it from the Data panel with a simple double click. And let's take a closer look at our interface. We have an application menu, which gives us a number of options for creating new designs, saving our work, exporting our work, and capturing our work in different ways. We can also share it with others in different environments. Beneath the application bar, we also have tools for saving, undoing, and redoing, as well as access to information such as the tutorials and help data. Moving back, we transition between different work environments. Within each work environment, we'll have different panels with different tools. So for example, we can browse what tools are part of the Sculpt Create panel. If we change to the Model workspace, the tools in the Create panel change. If there's a tool that we frequently use, we can add it to the panel as a shortcut. Later, if we choose, we can remove that tool just by simply selecting the X icon. A browser appears on the left side of the window to help us visually manage the structure of our data. I can turn any component off. I can also activate a component so any new geometry is included in the structure of that component. To make ourselves more comfortable, we can change the visual style of Fusion 360 by changing how the model appears, whether it be shaded, wireframe with hidden edges. We can also change the environment. Changing the environment changes the color of the background, as well as certain highlighting options on the model itself. We can engage other effects, such as ground reflections, so that our model is reflected off of a ground plane that appears in the design window. This ground plane has a grid associated with it, which we can turn off and on as well. By clicking our middle mouse button, we can pan. By holding the Shift key and our middle mouse button, we can orbit our model. And if we move our middle mouse forward and backward, we can make the model larger and smaller. Keep in mind that the zooming option using the mouse button is like pushing the model away from you to make it smaller or pulling it toward you to make it larger. The View Cube functions like it does in other Autodesk tools, where you can select corners, edges, or faces. You can pick and drag the View Cube to orbit. We can also engage options such as perspective display or perspective display with orthographic faces. So if we select on a face on the View Cube, the model will go flat to that face rather than appearing in perspective. To move beyond the basic functions, we can create additional projects inside of Autodesk 360. In this case, I'd like to create a new project to explore some chair designs. We'll simply enter the name, state the purpose of the new project, and if we like, we can collaborate with others by inviting them to this project. Other collaborators can be invited to a project at any time. In this case, I'll go ahead and enter a collaborator's email while I'm creating this project. When I click Create, it will build the project and invite the collaborators. With our project created and collaborators invited, we can now begin making designs in Fusion 360.